Welcome to Athens Happens. I'm Ben Peters, a news editor at The New Political. Athens Happens is a weekly news podcast brought to you by TNP reporters dedicated to explaining the nuances of Athens and state politics. You can find new episodes every Friday at thenewpolitical.com, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, or wherever else podcasts can be downloaded. In this special episode of Athens Happens, I sat down with newly elected Democratic City Council member Beth Clodfelter, who unseated lame duck Councilmember Pat McGee in November to talk about her politically involved family, her incredibly successful city council campaign, and how the county Democratic Party helped coach it, and the policies she hopes to implement this year. We're here in the Schoonover podcast studio on November 17th with newly elected council member, Democrat Beth Clodfelter. How are you, Beth?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for this invitation and the chance to talk with you.
Of course. So I just want to start off by having you tell us a little bit about yourself. What brought you here to Athens?
Well, originally birth. I was actually born here when my mom was a second grade teacher at Morrison Elementary School, and my dad was a grad student at OU. But my parents moved when I was 14 months old. I did not have a say in that decision. Yeah. And I grew up in a small college town in Indiana. So I grew up in Indiana, got my education at Indiana University, both my bachelor's and my master's degree. And I came to Athens when I got my first job out of a graduate school at Ohio University. And that was in the Center for International Studies. And I came, even though I liked that job and the people I was working with, I came with the intention to be here for about 2 years, not more than 3. Yeah. And then I planned to go to probably a fairly large city. And it took very little time at all for me to fall in love with this community and decide to make it my home. And that was a long time ago.
What was your job?
My first job at the Center for International Studies was coordinating the undergraduate major in international studies, as well as the certificate program. Both of those were for undergraduates. And I directed an international outreach program in which I helped prepare and then take international students out to schools and community organizations to give presentations about their countries and cultures. And that was wonderful. I really liked doing that and kind of opening. It was a good experience both for the international students and for the American kids or adults or just people who were listening to them and learning about the world without having to travel.
Interesting. So what was it that made you want to stay here instead of going off to a big city?
It's a really good question. I think I was impressed pretty quickly by the fact that so many people here were trying to do good things to improve the town and the state and the country.
Like what?
And, well, just about all of my friends are really engaged in nonprofit organizations.
Okay.
I'm a member of like 5 myself. And I loved the farmer's market. I really liked the bike path. I liked it that the community seemed friendly and safe. I was a young single woman at the time, and I didn't know before I moved if I'd be able to walk around when it was getting dark or when it was dark. Yeah. And then I had friends who were in places like New York and Chicago and DC and LA, and they were not walking around alone at night. But I talked to a lot of women in the community. I checked on it first, but I felt safe doing that. And, within reason, and it wasn't too late out. And I liked it that I was able to walk most of the places that I wanted to go. To me, that's a big quality of life factor. And I still live in a place where I can do that. I liked some of the local restaurants a lot, too. And I just love I don't mean to be saying this just because you're a student. Yeah. But I just really liked having all the college students around. I think having college students here makes it a really vibrant and interesting community.
How so?
Well, you guys have lots of positive energy, and so many of the students are smart and interesting, so I've just loved getting to know college students.
Good. Interesting. I'm interested that you said that feeling safe walking around at night was something that attracted you to Athens, because I know that there are a lot of women around town who feel like it's dark around campus and just the city in general, and that it's unsafe for them. They don't feel comfortable going around.
I think it depends very much on where you live and where you're going. There are definitely places in town where I wouldn't walk alone at night. And really, there's only really kind of one route that I do that, sort of like from campus or uptown to my house. Yeah. And it's well lit the whole way. But one of my goals when I get on city council is to get better lighting in dark places in town. And I'm definitely going to be talking to Andy Stone, the City Safety Services Director, and his assistant director or associate director, I'm not sure, Ron Lucas, about this. But I think that it would be great to get better lighting on West Washington Street, West State Street, Brown Avenue. There's one block of Watt Street on the Near East Side that needs lights, and probably Madison Avenue as well.
I think Bayard Street also. We have friends who live on Bayard Street.
Okay.
Behind the that big brick building, like the Smith Street something. It is pitch black at night.
Okay, I hadn't thought of that, but that's a good addition to the list.
So what got you interested in politics then?
I almost can't remember not being in politics. I grew up in a very politically engaged family, both my nuclear family and my extended family. And my dad, I would say my dad probably the most, although my mom's pretty politically engaged too. But my dad used to talk politics with me from a really young age. Like, I don't even know. Maybe I was 3 or 4. I mean, people probably would have thought he was nuts, but it lit a spark of some kind in me. And then my grandfather, both my grandfathers were local public servants. They both were elected to local government positions, my mom's dad and my dad's dad. So my paternal grandfather put me on his knee when I was about 5 or 5.5 and talked to me about how it's really important to take care of a community and to become a public servant. And he was telling me that he wanted me to run for office someday when I was 5, which is amazing. And then he kept talking to me about that for years. Unfortunately, he passed away when I believe I was 15. But not every single time I saw him. I saw him a few times a year, but I'd say at least yearly. He would talk to me about that. And I, as I said, I grew up in Indiana. He took me to the Indiana State House, and he introduced me to state legislators, and he took me to City Hall, and he took me to the county government building. And then the whole time he was saying, you know, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. You could be the county recorder like your mom's dad. You could be this like me. You could do, you know, you could go further. You could work there in Indianapolis at the State House. And it was interesting to me. This didn't happen until probably 10 years after he passed away. I was well into my mid-20s when I was at a family reunion, and I kind of casually brought up to my cousins, you know that conversation that we called him Papa, kind of a small town Indiana thing, but we called him Papa. You remember that conversation that Papa always used to have with us about, you know, being a public servant and helping the community? And they're like, what? I said, you know, when he was telling us to run for office and telling us that he wanted us to help our communities and stuff. And they said, I never had that conversation with him. And I said, wait a minute, you must have. I have a huge family. So I was like, wait, he wasn't just talking to me, surely. And everybody was like, yeah, he was talking to you. You're the smartest of any of us. So it was just fascinating to know that, because I'm one of 25 cousins. And I was the only one that he talked to about that.
Why do you think that he felt so strongly about serving?
Well, it was a really important value to him, and it was kind of part of his life. He had, to my knowledge, according to family stories and what he told me, he had been giving to the community since he was a little kid. He grew up in a poor rural family, but they always shared with people who didn't have as much as them. Always. Usually food was the issue. But they, he told me about times when his parents would invite a family in who had run out of, probably wood, I guess, to heat their house in the winter. And his family didn't have enough money to go buy them wood, but they could share the warmth that they had. And he just did all kinds of service. For years, he was a union activist, union leader in Detroit with United Auto Workers. And he ended up kind of moving up in the hierarchy there and becoming kind of the go-to guy for benefit issues for the UAW, which at the time was the largest union in the United States. And one thing that I've always been really proud of him for is that way before it was a nationwide thing, he got the UAW union members the first mental health benefits. And it was kind of the first place in the whole U.S. where that happened. And then other companies started doing that too. So he just helped many, many people with mental health issues.
Do you feel like you're kind of fulfilling what he would have wanted you to do, in a sense?
Well, I must say that my extended family's been incredibly supportive of my run for office and talking to me about it all the time on Facebook and stuff. We live all over the place. But in the days after the election, when they knew I won, I got so many messages that made me cry because people were, happy for me and genuinely congratulating me, but almost to a person. The people in my dad's extended family said, and Papa would be so proud.
Yeah.
And that really got to me.
Awesome. So you earned way more votes than any other member or any other candidate running, including the incumbents on council.
Yeah, which was shocking to me.
Yeah. Did you expect that at all?
No, I was thrilled. I was working so hard, and I was wondering if I would get in third or fourth place, to see if I was going to be on the city council. But I did a whole lot of canvassing. I think I talked to I knocked on about 1,400 doors. I went to every single neighborhood. Of course, not all those people were home, but I talked to a whole bunch of them that were, left notes for the ones that weren't. And that probably did a lot. And the people of Athens were just really kind and welcoming when I did that. I kept waiting for someone to say, get off my front step. Go away. I don't want to be bothered. But almost nobody did that. A few people told me they were in a big rush and had to go, but they apologized. And they were even polite about that. But going door to door to so many homes made me even more certain that this is an unusually kind, polite, and welcoming community. And a lot of the people I talked to were really kind of engaged in my ideas. They liked my ideas and my goals for the city council. So I think that's why I won so much.
Was there anything else you did other than canvassing that you think kind of set you apart from the other candidates running that maybe might be part of the reason why you earned so many more votes?
Well, it's a good question. I gave some public presentations. I spoke at some community organizations. I spoke at some Democratic events. I participated in every one of the city council forums and debates. And I got, I guess the feedback was that my comments were well received. A lot of people said positive things about the statements I made, and then the media, the local media, I thought did a good job of covering those, especially the first forum that the League of Women Voters put on at the community center. Both the A News and the Messenger did really good coverage of those. So even more people than were in the room that night, I think, were able to read the articles about that, because a lot of people mentioned to me at their doors as I continued canvassing that they had read what I had said and they liked my comments or something. And so that was probably part of it as well.
That's interesting. How much do you think, media coverage in this past election maybe played into the results?
Well, I don't know. That's a really good question. There weren't that many media sessions, but mainly I was just talking to people. And I did send out media, let's see. Media was probably good. I mean, I'm sure it helped. A lot of people, they had told me they had read the, they said different things. A lot of them didn't seem to remember exactly where they saw what, which is okay. I'm like that a lot too, especially if I'm reading multiple newspapers about a certain thing.
Sure.
But they said like, oh, I saw what you said in the paper. And I was thinking, okay, I didn't actually sit down for an interview, so that was coverage of the forum probably. I think there was one podcast that was done in this room that did get published or whatever, did get shared prior to the election. And that was done by a communications major named, I think strategic communications major named Michaela. And that was probably one of the best interviews I did. I'm trying to remember. I don't think I actually got interviewed by any newspaper folks. They were just covering my comments in those forums.
Yeah. So now that Pat McGee is unseated from city council, he was the only independent on council. You yourself are a Democrat.
Yep.
The council will now be, in January, entirely controlled by Democrats.
Yep.
How do you feel about that?
I think that a lot of people think we're going to be having groupthink or something, but actually I think that all of us have really different ideas. And some of those Democrats are very conservative, like blue dog Democrats, and others are more progressive. I think on most things I fall into the latter category. And so I think that, people are, I don't really blame people, but several people have mentioned to me a concern that we're all going to just kind of fall in line and vote exactly the same way. Well, I can already predict some real arguments that are likely to be coming up. Discussions, and I shouldn't say arguments, but disagreements, strong disagreements about some issues. And I think that's healthy. I have never been one in meetings to be thrilled when consensus happens really quickly. I think in general, discussion and debate of ideas leads to better solutions and richer ideas because generally speaking, the more people that contribute their own ideas, the better ideas emerge. And I'm optimistic that we'll be able to do that on city council, even with an all-blue city council.
Which issues in particular do you think are going to be contentious?
That's it. I don't want to offend anybody. But the Bailey's Trail discussion, the Airbnb issue, because I don't like the tourist houses. I think those would be two of the main ones. Oh, and the towing fees. Yeah, definitely. We're going to have disagreements about the towing fees. So,
what do you predict the outcome will be concerning the Airbnb?
I really don't know. It's a good question. I'm curious to find out, and I'm curious as well to see how quickly the Planning Commission is going to give that issue back to City Council. I don't really know. I've wondered if I'll even get to vote on it. Like, at this point, probably, but for a while there it was looking like they might be able to just complete the entire process of the 6 weeks that issues always take to get, or nearly always take to get through council, with 3 different full city council meetings that meet every 2 weeks. And there was plenty of time for that, but the city's planning commission has had it for a while now. So I'm curious to see if they will have myself and Arian Smedley, who will be taking office in January as well as the first ward representative for the West Side, if we will be asked to kind of jump into the process in the middle and vote or not. If they'll say, no, we've already started this, you should wait.
How do you personally feel about the matter?
Well, I have a variety of feelings about the matter, I guess, to be honest with you. I very much agree that we need to protect our communities and not get the communities hurt. And I'm afraid that the tourist homes, if they go to the R2 and R3 zones, could end up raising the rents for the students and all the other citizens who are rentals. So I'm kind of worried about those tourist homes. I wish we weren't doing that. I think it would be better to just have the Airbnbs in the free bedrooms in people's homes.
Yeah.
But I also think that, especially with the decline in enrollment at Ohio University and the likelihood that we are not yet really feeling the financial impact of that, but it could be really negative, potentially at least, for Athens, Ohio.
Yeah.
That the more that we can find economic alternatives for people, the better. Even if having, 2 bedrooms that you're renting out in your house is not going to change your life, might help you keep your house. It might help you, depending on how often you were renting it, I don't know, might just help you take care of some important expenses that would make a difference, even if you were primarily renting it on big weekends. But there are, 9 of those a year or something? Yeah. If you had 2 bedrooms rented for 2 nights each, 9 times a year, you could probably make some, a decent amount of money.
What are your thoughts on the Bailey's Trail funding?
I'm actually somebody, I'll just say it. I know not everybody agrees, but I'm very much in favor of the Bailey's Trail. And a lot of people don't really understand the financial stuff because there is a transient guest tax. And so like a hotel tax. So the money generated from that fund is mandated by Ohio law, by the Ohio Revised Code, to be used for the promotion of tourism and or economic development only. And so I've heard people say, well, why should we spend this much money on a bike trail? It's not even in Athens. We could be using it to fill potholes or for the schools. Well, no, we couldn't, because you can't use transient guest tax funds for those things. You have to use those funds to promote tourism and or economic development. And so right now, I've looked at that budget. The city auditor kindly shared it with me when I asked. And there's enough money in there. Some of that fund goes to support the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Some of it helps to support the Economic Development Council. And there's still enough money in there to cover the $90,000 a year annual commitment for the Bailey's Trail without causing any harm to anything else in the city, because that's all it can be used for. And to me, the Bailey's Trail does sound like a really good way to get more tourists here and to help our local economy if we get those guests. So, we'll have to see. But I was pretty impressed when I attended. I've been attending city council meetings since January regularly.
Yeah.
And so I was at the meetings when they were talking about the Bailey's Trail. Professor Danny Twilley, who is, I don't remember your exact title, Danny, sorry. But he's like professor of recreational management or something. Like I don't know. He knows about this stuff.
Yeah.
And so he's been to similar trails in other states, none of which apparently in anywhere near us would be as long as the 88-mile trail that's being proposed for the Bailey's Trail. And he said that those trails are just magnets for mountain bikers who come in from all over the place to go to a good trail. And some of them do day trips. We'd probably get a fair number of people doing day trips from Columbus. I'm quite happy to admit that. But even the day trip people from Columbus might have a meal, might get a tank of gas or something, might buy something else before they go back. But a lot of people, he was saying, and I've since had friends of mine who are big mountain bikers confirm this or agree with this, is that people will travel a long way to go to a good mountain biking trail. They might cross multiple state lines. And in that scenario, presumably they'd be spending at least one night. And so it could be really good for our hotels if, in fact, the city council approves Airbnbs. Maybe there'd be more people staying in the Airbnbs, not just in the busy weekends, but sometimes in the summer or whenever those bikers were going on the trail, maybe in the fall as well. Spring, summer, fall, probably. So I think it could potentially be good. I actually think it would be interesting. I don't think we've ever seen a demographic like the one we might get from this trail. It seems to me that at least in the 21 years now, that I've lived in Athens, that the majority of people who visit Athens are either prospective students or they're the parents of current students.
Right.
Or, then there's homecoming and it's alumni. But those people, when they're visiting, are not necessarily visiting to exercise, right? They're doing other things, lots of other things. But this would be a group of people coming to exercise. So they might be fairly healthy-oriented people. And so maybe having those people come in would help our bike shops, maybe the Athens Running Company, if they're also runners, if they do different sports. I think a lot of them might go to our local restaurants that have the local food. I've heard that they might like the microbreweries, that as a generalization, this community likes local beer. So, and who knows where else they would go. But benefit some businesses that don't necessarily benefit from big OU related weekends.
Yeah.
Having, I mean, if in fact we do get a lot of tourists from the Bailey's Trail actually coming into Athens, which does seem likely to me. I really hope that Chauncey, the community of Chauncey, benefits from this. I really sincerely do. But to me, if somebody's going to come, especially if they're coming multiple states, to do a mountain bike trail, my guess is they want to do something kind of interesting. And no offense to Chauncey whatsoever, but Chauncey, I think, could be great for people who want to really relax and have a nice, quiet place to do that. It could be really lovely for that. Mm-hmm. But if you want to be more active and I don't know, maybe, no offense to Chauncey, but maybe have some more fun, I think people are going to come to Athens. There'd be more lodging options. There'd be more dining options. There'd be more nightlife if that's what they're looking for. I think we would get a lot of people coming to Athens. And one thing I would be really interested in, and who knows, but I've just been thinking of all the ways this might be beneficial. There are apparently approximately 4 million people a year that go to the Hocking Hills. Mm-hmm. It's just astounding how many people are going there. And the vast majority of those 4 million people do not seem to be coming here.
Right.
Even though it's pretty close. Wouldn't it be interesting if some of those people that go to the Hocking Hills then decide to do the Bailey's Trail? And I don't know what percentage of those 4 million that would be, but I bet some of those 4 million people are mountain bikers, or are healthy and would like to do trail running, or are bird watchers and would like to go watch birds on the trail or hike the trail. And if we could somehow tie the marketing of the Bailey's Trail into the marketing for the Hocking Hills, then that might be one way we really would hit the number of tourists that people are saying we might get. Mm.
You know, I'm interested that with the Bailey's Trail thing, the money would come through people staying in hotels and other temporary residences.
Yep.
And there's not that many hotels in town, and they're always full. I mean, you know, when my parents come here, they have to schedule, and not even for like a major weekend, they have to schedule out months in advance.
Even not on a busy weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I know my dad probably does it to be safe because he knows that they fill up. But I'm curious as to how they're going to house all these people. If there is going to be this huge influx of tourists coming here, they also have to contend with, you know, the prospective OU students and the parents who are also staying in these hotels.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's like, is there enough space for all these tourists?
I think it's a really excellent question. And I think typically in general in the U.S., markets react once they know what the conditions are. Mm-hmm. So if in fact it became an issue that there wasn't enough lodging for all these people, my suspect is there would be more lodging.
Yeah.
But if I were a hotelier, I wouldn't build one before I saw what was going to happen. Mm. Maybe that's why I'm not one, because that would be too conservative. But that's one of the ways that I think, going back to the Airbnb situation, if we enabled more people to have to rent rooms in their houses, then that could potentially accommodate a lot more people, depending on how many Athens residents or renters, if they had, you know, the okay of the landlord, were willing to open up a room in the home. Hmm. It might help to absorb any kind of lack of hotel space for a while. Or it might be that, you know, people would have to go stay further away. But hopefully Athens could somehow accommodate those people and be the community to reap a lot of the financial benefits. Hmm.
I think the summertime would be... I mean, I guess that if there is a bike trail and there are people coming, they're likely going to be coming in the warmer months. Yeah. And when the population is a lot smaller here.
Yeah. And I think you're right. And I think that would be a perfect fit, because I think the hotels are much less busy in the summer, and that and sometimes the hotels are worried that they're not getting enough money in the summer. So having mountain bikers coming in to stay in the summer might really be helpful for those businesses and for the city. And it might work really well. But, you know, warm months last a while. And so I have wondered what would happen, you know, graduation weekend and right. the parents' weekends in the fall and in the spring, because it could still be beautiful for doing that. And I don't know. That would be interesting. And I think maybe one partial answer to the question would be that, in my opinion, it would be wise to approve the Airbnb bill, the ordinance, and let people do that and let people offer bedrooms.
Okay. So I want to talk about campaign finance a little bit.
Okay.
You raised way more money than any other candidate. I mean, it wasn't even close.
Yeah, which was so surprising. Everybody was just so generous to me. Mm-hmm. And it was so surprising because I wasn't even asking for donations, but people were just so kindly giving me money. Mm-hmm. It was amazing.
Why do you think you raised so much more than everybody else?
Gosh, I don't know. Well, part of the reason was, as I mentioned earlier, my extended family was so excited that I was running for office. I got all these checks from people in the mail and at my family reunion, and people were handing me cash, and it was just kind of amazing. Mm-hmm. And and they were just saying such nice things about. Well, I am now the fourth generation in my dad's family to be a public servant once I get on city council. Mm-hmm. That started with my great-grandmother and Ethel and my great-grandfather. And then both my grandfathers and my dad successfully ran for school board. I was his prop going door to door. That's when I learned to canvass. And I think I got off track to your question. Why did I get more? So I have a big extended family on my dad's side, and a lot of them gave me $20, $30, $50, and it added up. And then the people of Athens were also just really kind to me. People that I have known for years just walked up to me with checks in their hands. It was incredible. People have asked me, what's your secret to fundraising? I'm like, I have no clue. Because I wasn't asking. People were just handing me money. Mm-hmm. So people were just really believing in me, and they were just so incredibly kind and generous.
So how much do you think that having the Democratic Party backing you helped in the election? You had the name behind you and also the support of the county party.
Well, it's a good question. There were a few concrete ways in which they helped. They did help a lot. I'd say first and foremost, I got really good advice from some of the experienced members of the Athens Democratic Party who are office holders themselves. Advice on what to do, advice on what not to do. And that saved me a lot of time trying to figure it out. And that was definitely advantageous. Some of them actively helped me. Some of them went door to door with me. And that was fun, It was fun to get to know them better. It was nice of them to do that. I did a mailing. I mailed a letter out.
Yeah.
Near the like kind of down the stretch, and all kinds of people helped me with that mailing. That was when it was the most concrete, and the biggest amount of help was there were just all these Democrats helping to fold the letters and helping to stuff the envelopes, and it was just so kind of them, and I appreciated the help so much. But also, every year the Athens Democratic Party has a spring dinner and a fall dinner, and that spring dinner was the first time I spoke publicly about my campaign, and it was not awesome, right? It was my first time, but it was really helpful, and it helped me, preparing for that helped me really kind of clarify and solidify my ideas and figure out how to explain them clearly but succinctly. And the first one was, okay. It had a lot of room for improvement, but it was good to just make that happen. Before I was speaking in public to audiences that weren't necessarily so friendly and forgiving. And then by the time the fall dinner rolled around, I was a lot more comfortable and gave I think I gave a much better speech at the fall dinner. But it was being able to do that scary first spring one helped a great deal.
So you mentioned that Democratic Party leaders gave you advice.
Yeah.
What kind of advice did they give you?
All kinds of things. They gave me advice on how to dress so I would look like a city council member. One of them told me I needed to dress up more, that what I was wearing was not good. Okay. Like, dress up more. You dress too comfortably. You need to dress up. So I took it up a notch. And another one got more specific with me. She said, okay, if this is a little confusing, you don't have to wear suits and dresses all the time, but wear a collar on your shirt every day. Like, okay, I'm going to have to do more shopping, but okay, I'll do that. that was kind of interesting. I got advice about like kind of how to go canvassing. A couple people went door to door with me early and gave me some advice to not spend as much time as I wanted at every door, which I kind of did anyway later. But and just gave me some tips about leaving notes at the doors of people that weren't home, which was a really good idea. That was actually the mayor of Chillicothe, Democratic mayor of Chillicothe, gave me that one. But people in town agreed with it. They gave me so much advice. They advised me to do the mailing. They helped me, a couple of them kind of gave me a mock community forum kind of thing. Yeah, they asked me tough questions and said, no, you got to make that shorter. You got to say it again, make that shorter. And not the same questions came up, but having them go through that with me, they were very kind to do it, and having them just make me think through how to explain my ideas within 90 seconds or 60 seconds was very helpful and helped me answer. I feel certain that just having that practice helped me do a better job of answering questions with that limited time about questions that those people helping me never asked, because once I got into that flow of just talking succinctly, it just helped me do that better.
What did the format of those look like? Was it just you and one person sitting down, or were they very formal?
They were all 6 of us. So 6 people ran for these 3 spots. And so usually we were sitting at a table in a row, and there were prepared questions from the organization usually.
Oh, no, I mean the mock ones that you did.
Oh, the mock ones. Oh, yeah. That was 2 other women and myself in a living room.
Okay.
A dining room, I guess, at a dining room table. And, they were just asking me questions that had come up in the past, questions they might come up about pertinent contemporary issues, questions about my background. It was good. It was really helpful. And then one other person did that with me as well. I had 2 practice sessions before the first League of Women Voters City Council Candidates Forum, and it was really helpful. And I've always liked practice like that. I was a speech and debate team member in high school, and we practiced a lot, and we listened to each other and gave each other pointers on our answers and made each other get our answers down under the required amount of time. And so that felt really familiar to me, and I was really glad that those people offered to help me prepare.
How do you think that having people close to you like this, giving you pointers and helping you run a successful campaign, how did that affect you in a way that maybe some other of these independent candidates who didn't necessarily have things like that did? I guess, and this isn't a very succinct question, but do you think that this help and all these pointers really did help you take your campaign to the next level that maybe some candidates didn't?
Well, I don't know how much help the socialist candidates got. I don't know. We didn't compare notes.
Yeah.
But certainly to my knowledge, there haven't been any socialist city council members in Athens. To my knowledge, it never happened. Definitely not in recent years. So, yeah, that probably was an advantage for me that they didn't necessarily have. Though I wondered if they talked to socialist government officials in other cities or something, but I do not know. I cannot speak for them. But if I were them, that's what I would have done. Maybe they could have talked to AOC or something. I don't know. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But I think the fact that Athens County has a strong Democratic Party was advantageous.
Yeah. Why did you choose to run as a Democrat?
It would have been dishonest to run as anything else.
Okay.
I'm a 4th-generation Democrat from a place where we were in the minority. I believe very strongly in what I view as the values of the Democratic Party, among them being fairness and taking care of the environment and respecting people's rights, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, racial equality, all of those things. So, I'm just a true blue Democrat.
So on election day, one of our colleagues saw you handing out literature in Baker, which was a voting precinct, which is technically illegal.
I know.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't realize it. I had walked in downstairs. I'd been let out of a car and looked only at the building, not at the flags that apparently were behind me. And I walked upstairs and I didn't see any flags. I should have realized. I felt so bad about that. But yeah, that was, I screwed that up, but I wasn't there very long and very few students were going in to vote. So I don't think it affected anything, but I felt really bad that I screwed that up. So when I went to the dairy barn, the polling place at the dairy barn, I stayed right out by the road, like clearly beyond the flags, and didn't get any closer than that. I didn't want to screw up again.
Were you penalized at all for that?
No, they just told me to leave, and I did immediately. Right. And I wasn't at all offended. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. It was only when I went out the fourth floor doors that I saw the flags, which were across the street. And with tons of people walking by, it was not likely I was going to notice them when I didn't even come in that way.
So is there any a particular legislation that you're hoping to push through in your first year in office? Any pet projects you have in mind?
Yeah, I've got lots of pet projects. So I want to get better lighting in dark places to make people safer. I want to get more trees planted because in the last 60 years, Athens has lost approximately 40% of its tree canopy. And in many places in town, you can see a row of trees that was presumably planted at one time when people were, had a great idea to do that. But a few of those trees have died or been injured and removed, and there are gaps. There are gaps here and there in many of the rows of street trees. I think it'd be great if we could replace those. And I'd like to see a lot more tree planting. I'll leave it at that for now, but I have an idea of how we can do that. And also I'd like to see the city commit to planting only native trees, shrubs, and flowers.
What do you mean native trees?
Ones that are from here, not exotic ones from other places.
It's like from Ohio or from Athens County?
From as local as we could get them.
Okay.
Yeah, but at least from Ohio. Here in Southeast Ohio, preferably in Appalachian, Ohio. That would be so much better so I've done a lot of reading on this. I could bore you to tears with talking about all the books I've read about the value of planting native species of plants. But a few of the highlights are that native plants evolved here. Like plants from this region evolved here in this region. As the native pollinators and birds and other animals were evolving here in this place. And so native plants are generally just way better for native pollinators, bees, butterflies, other insect-y sort of pollinators, but also for many bird species as well. Just way better than some of the non-native plants are. And pollinators really need a break right now. They are, the honeybee population has fallen dramatically and it's getting a lot of attention, but so have the populations of a lot of other native bees, including bumblebees. Bumblebees are now on the endangered species list. And that is really scary because pollination is so important to the safety of our food system and our food supply. And I personally am a little, just my own personal interest is that a lot of my favorite foods need bees, need bee pollination. I don't want to lose tomatoes and raspberries and peaches and a lot of really, really good foods. So, but they're really important on a much bigger sense to the environment as a whole. But also native plants typically need less water than a lot of exotic varieties and need less sort of TLC maintenance as well. So I think if the city really proactively plants native flowers and shrubs and trees, that once they get established in a year or so, from that point on, the city could actually save money by having the native varieties planted. They wouldn't have to spend as much time working with them. In some places, if native flowers could replace areas of grass, like there are a few strips of grass on the far side of the Hocking River near the West State Street ball fields that the city owns. They're not huge tracts of land, but they're just kind of most of them are narrow strips right along the river. I don't know how far they go out, 15, 20 feet. And they're in grass right now, just grass, and they mow them. And I think it would be lovely and also good for the environment, especially the pollinators, and could potentially save money if instead of mowing those sections, I don't know how often they do it, every 2 weeks maybe, all through the grass growing season, if in fact they planted beautiful perennial native wildflowers and probably only had to mow once a year, as is normally done with plantings like that. Conceivably not at all, but typically those plantings are healthier if you mow them once a year. Once instead of 20 times. Something, approximately would make a difference in gasoline costs, labor costs. They could reassign those people to other city needs.
Any other projects that
sorry. I just really love that one.
Oh, no, you're good.
What were my other ideas? Sorry.
You said lighting, local or, regional trees.
Sorry. I really want to improve the condition of the sidewalks.
Okay.
There are a lot of, having gone door to door all over the city now, I feel pretty confident in saying that the worst sidewalks in the city are on the west side and on the near east side of town, the two oldest parts of the city, the two oldest neighborhood parts. And there are some streets on both of those neighborhoods where it is really difficult for people in wheelchairs or using walkers or people pushing baby strollers to cross the sidewalks. I mean, they can't really use them. I heard recently of a person in a wheelchair, an Athens resident who uses a wheelchair, who has to plan his route of where he wants to go by where he knows the sidewalks are at least decent enough for him to cross with his wheelchair. I think that's sad. If that's the case for him, there may well be people in wheelchairs in Athens who just can't go certain places because the sidewalks are in such poor shape. So I think the condition of the sidewalks is particularly an issue for people with mobility challenges of one kind or another. Probably not great for blind people either. But I also know that I've tripped on them multiple times. I do a lot of walking. I see able-bodied people tripping on the sidewalks all the time. And that's not good for anybody and, could potentially have some liability issues for the community. And to me, it seems like it would make a lot more sense to just get systematic and strategic about upgrading the quality, the condition of the sidewalks, rather than, potentially facing lawsuits if we don't.
Is there anything else you want to add before we head out?
One thing that I'm pledging to do once I become, once I get into the city council, is to have a monthly meeting so that anybody in the city can come and talk to me about city issues. So I won't be able to set that up until I get on the city council because I have to see what committees I'm going to be participating in, and I'll have to see my schedule. But I plan to do it once a month. And I just feel strongly that while city councils absolutely need to represent the city of Athens, that we should also be accessible to them. And I want to create a space and an opportunity so that people that aren't already friends with me, or not my neighbors, or have never met me or whatever, have a way to talk to me in person if they choose to do so. And I also, one thing I'm optimistic about in proposing to do that, I don't know if this will happen, but I think often in Athens, as well as many other communities, this is not unique to us, there's a kind of a core group of engaged, active citizens that weigh in on lots of city issues. They're paying attention, they're engaged, they share their opinions. It's smart. I must say I've been one of them. So, but I want to create space for people who are quieter or who don't normally share their opinions as well. So I think having those monthly meetings might be beneficial for people.
What would that look like? Would you just open up? Do you have an office? I don't know.
No, there's not really an office for city council people. I'm planning to do it at a public place. Again, it will depend on the schedule, and that will affect the location. But but dare I say it, I'm hoping it might be the Village Bakery.
Okay.
Which has good parking, and that's just, I think, just a wonderful locally owned restaurant.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Beth. We really appreciate you coming here and talking to us.
Thank you very much. This was a pleasure, and I appreciate your time, Ben.
And that wraps it up here on Athens Happens. Make sure to tune in every Friday for new episodes that shed light on the politics that impact all of our lives. Remember, you can find the show on the New Political's website, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and on YouTube in a video podcast format. Also, be sure to check out our website at thenewpolitical.com, where we regularly report stories on what really happens here in Athens, and follow @thenewpolitical on social media. Thank you all so much. Have a great week.